The Wounded Warrior. The sky was burning above her. Red smoke covered the field and the ground shook with every distant blast. Laurea could not move her legs. Something heavy had fallen on her during the last explosion. Metal. Sharp. Hot. Her armor was cracked. Her breathing was slow. She blinked dust out of her eyes and turned her head. Her own people were running away. Her commander looked back once, but then kept running. They were leaving her. She opened her mouth to shout, but only blood came out. Her voice was broken. Her body was broken. She tried to lift her arm. It didn't move. One thought stayed in her mind. This is how I die. She lay there for minutes, maybe hours. The sounds of battle moved far away. Then silence. No footsteps, no ships, just smoke and the faint smell of fire. But then she heard something. Heavy boots. Slow, steady steps. Someone was walking toward her, not her people. They wore lighter armor. These steps were heavier, louder. Human. Her heart raced. She had seen humans before, but never this close. Her kind called them beasts, monsters in metal. They were not supposed to feel, not supposed to care. They were killers. She closed her eyes, waiting for pain. The footsteps stopped beside her. Silence. Then she felt something strange. Warm hands. Gentle. Pulling the wreckage off her body. Her eyes opened slowly. A tall figure in black armor stood over her. His face was partly covered. A human, a soldier. His eyes were brown, calm, but sharp. He looked down at her, not with hate, but with concern. She tried to move. He held her shoulder gently. "Don't," he said in a low voice. "You're hurt." She couldn't understand all the words. His language was different, but his tone was clear. He wasn't going to kill her. He reached into his pack and took out a small bottle. He opened it and poured something on her bleeding arm. It burned. She winced. He gave her a look, almost like a small smile, like he was saying, "Sorry." Then he took out a tool and began fixing her broken armor. Slowly, carefully. She wanted to ask him why. Why was a human helping her? Was this a trick? But there was no one else. No camera. No orders. Just him. He looked up at the sky, then back at her. He said something fast into a small device on his shoulder. A voice replied. He shook his head. Maybe his team told him to leave her, but he stayed. He took a small patch from his belt and pressed it onto her neck. Pain rushed through her, then faded. Her eyes became clearer. She could breathe better. "Better?" he asked. She blinked once. He nodded. "Good." Then, without asking, he gently picked her up. She was light in his arms, weak, helpless. He didn't seem afraid. Not of enemy patrols. Not of her. Not even of the rules. She looked up at the sky again. The same burning clouds. But now she was not. Alone. The human carried her across the battlefield, away from the smoke, away from the danger. She did not know his name. She did not know why he helped her, but deep inside she felt something strange, safe, something her own kind never gave her. The human's decision. The human's arms were strong, but his steps were slow. He moved carefully, scanning every broken wall and shadow around them. His armor made soft clinks with every movement, but he tried to be silent. He was carrying a wounded alien, deep in enemy territory. One wrong move, and both of them would be dead. The sun was gone now. Only a pale, green light from the shattered moon gave shape to the ruins around them. Old buildings stood like broken teeth. Black smoke curled from distant fires. Lara's body felt heavier with every step, but she watched his face. He didn't look scared, just focused. His name, she would learn later, was Rylan. But right now, to her, he was just the human. He stopped, under a half-fallen arch, and laid her down gently on a bed of soft dust. Her body ached. But what shocked her more was how carefully he handled her. Her people called humans cruel, wild. Yet this one treated her like glass. He took out a device, twisted a knob, and pointed it at her leg. The machine blinked red. Bad injury. His brow furrowed. He spoke into his comm again. Command, I found. A wounded alien. Female. She's not a threat. I'm requesting evac. The reply came fast and cold. Static filled the silence. Then a sharp voice barked. Negative. Leave her. She's not our mission. Ryland's jaw tightened. Lara couldn't understand the words, but she could feel the shift in his energy. Something had changed. He stared at his comm for a long moment. Then he shut it off. He looked down at her, his eyes full of something she didn't expect. Anger? No, defiance. He pulled a thermal cloak from his pack and wrapped it around her. They won't come for you, he said softly, but I will. Lara stared at him. Why? He didn't owe her anything. They were enemies. He had no reason to risk his life. But still, he moved again. Picked her up, began walking deeper into the ruins. Around them, shadows moved. Enemy scouts, drones, her kind and his. Everyone was hunting someone. She tried to speak, but her throat was dry. She managed a few broken words. Why, save me? His steps didn't slow. He just whispered back, because no one else will. Those words struck something inside her. Her mind flashed back to her captain's cold face. You slow us down, he had said. You die here. No hesitation, no sadness. But this human, he fought for a stranger. They came to a collapsed shelter. Ryland pulled aside metal beams and dragged her inside. The space was dark, tight, but warm. He closed the entrance behind them and set her down against the wall. Then he began to work. He lit a fire using scraps and broken tech. Small sparks danced in the air. The heat touched her frozen skin. He took out a water pack and held it to her lips. She drank. For the first time since the battle, her body relaxed, but her heart was more tense than ever. Who was this human? What was he doing in the war zone alone? Why was he carrying a broken alien? Warrior when he had orders to leave? You're lucky, he said as he pulled off his helmet, revealing tired eyes and a scar along his jaw. They told me to leave, but I don't like being told who's worth saving. Lara's breath caught. His words were quiet, but they hit like thunder. He sat beside her, cleaning his rifle. Alert, calm. She wanted to ask more, but her voice failed again. Her people had taught her all the wrong things about humans, and now, in the dark, with the warmth of a stolen fire and pain still burning in her legs, she began to question everything. What if everything she knew was a lie? Outside, a soft beep echoed. Danger! Motion sensor! Someone was coming. The human stood up fast, rifle raised, body still as stone. He looked back at her once, then toward the door. His eyes were sharp again. Ready? If they were found now, he would have to fight for her, and she didn't even know why. Hunted. The beeping was soft, but it filled the small shelter with dread. Danger was near. Ryland held his breath. Lara did too. Outside, something moved. Slow steps, heavy, metal. Maybe an enemy drone, maybe a patrol, maybe her own kind. But it didn't matter. They would shoot first. The human reached into his pouch, pulled out a black cloth, and gently wrapped it around Lara's mouth. Don't panic, he whispered. I'm not leaving you. She didn't fight it. Her trust in him, though new and confusing, was real. The shelter had no door, just broken steel parts stacked for cover. Ryland crouched by the entrance, rifle aimed, eyes locked forward. The sounds grew closer. Footsteps, mechanical clicks. Then, silence. Ryland's finger tightened around the trigger. A shadow passed across the entrance. Then another. Through a crack, Lara saw movement. 3 figures in armor. Not human. Not hers either. Mercenaries. Hired killers. They were known across the stars for hunting the weak, taking trophies, sometimes selling survivors. She wanted to scream, but she stayed still. Just like he asked, the mercs didn't speak. They scanned the ruins with long blades and old tech. One walked right to the shelter's edge. His foot stopped just inches from Ryland's rifle. Time froze. Lara's heart beat so loud she thought it would give them away, but Ryland didn't move. He didn't even blink. The merc stood there for a long moment, then turned away. They moved on. Minutes passed. No more footsteps. Ryland exhaled slowly, then turned back to her. "We move now," he said. She nodded. Pain exploded through her body as he lifted her again. The injuries were still raw, but she didn't complain. Not now. Not after that. He carried her out the back of the shelter, into the shadows, through twisted metal and scorched dirt. His steps were quicker now, less careful. He knew they were being hunted. "They'll come back," he said. "We can't stay close to the wrecks." She didn't answer, but her grip on his arm tightened. They passed a broken tower, climbed through a collapsed tunnel, and entered a long ditch once used for moving supplies. It was narrow, dark, and smelled like blood. Still, it was safer than the open. As they walked, Ryland finally spoke again. "I wasn't supposed to be here," he said. "My mission was recon. Quiet, fast, gather data." Lara looked at him, confused. "Then why? Help me." His eyes didn't meet hers. He just said, "Because back home, we lost someone. She called for help. No one came." His voice cracked, slightly. "I won't let that happen again." For the first time, Lara saw something break in him. He wasn't just a soldier, he was carrying a ghost. Suddenly, they heard a sharp noise. Not far. A whistle, artificial, a tracker. They had been marked. "They tagged your armor," Ryland said, putting her down fast. "Hold still." He dug into her side panel, pulled out a round device, glowing red. He crushed it under his boot. Too late. Blades sliced through the air above. A drone had spotted them. Ryland grabbed his rifle and fired. One shot, then another. The drone exploded mid-air, but the damage was done. Alarms echoed from the distance. More would come. "We need cover!" he shouted. He lifted her again and ran. Through ruins, through smoke, through narrow paths filled with danger. The world blurred past them. Fire. Shadows. Gunfire. He didn't stop. Even as bullets whizzed past, even as dust filled his lungs. He ran. For her. They finally reached an old underground shaft, a forgotten transport tunnel. He kicked the rusted door open and dropped inside with her. Darkness. Cold. But safe. For now. They collapsed together against the wall. No words. Just breathing. Just survival. She looked at him. His armor cracked, his arm bleeding, and still. He smiled at her. "You're tougher than you look," he whispered. She didn't smile back, but something in her chest felt warm. For the first time since the war began, Lara was no longer afraid, not because she was safe, but because someone refused to let her be alone. Warmth in the dark, the tunnel was silent, but not dead. Water dripped from somewhere in the dark, echoing off the old metal walls. The air was cold, filled with dust and age, old human machines. Rested along the sides, transport carts, rusted tools, even broken crates marked with faded warning signs. Lara lay beside Ryland in the shadows, barely able to move. Her armor was damaged. Blood had dried in the cracks. But her pain wasn't the only thing keeping her awake. She kept staring at him, This human, this stranger, had carried her through death, through fire, and now through darkness. Not because he had to. Not because someone ordered him, but because he chose to. Who was he? Why risk so much for someone like her? Are you cold? His voice broke the silence. She nodded weakly. Without a word, Rylan took off part of his thermal vest and wrapped it around her shoulders. It was warm, soft. She leaned into it without thinking. He sat down beside her, eyes scanning the tunnel ahead. Then, slowly, he began to speak. This tunnel was used in the old days. Humans moved supplies through here, food, fuel, sometimes even people. He paused. I read about it once. Never thought I'd hide here with an alien. Lara tried to smile, but her face was stiff. Me neither. Can you move your legs yet? No, she whispered. He looked at her, then at her damaged suit. You need a support brace. I'll build you one. She blinked. With what? He smiled faintly. Whatever I can find. Then he got up and started searching the tunnel. She watched as he worked, dragging wires, metal rods, and broken clamps toward her. He worked fast, like he'd done this before. His hands were rough but skilled. You've done this before, she said softly. He didn't stop moving. Yeah, back home. My sister. She was sick. Had trouble walking. I used to build things to help her. Little machines, braces, support shoes. Lara fell quiet. He continued building, twisting, cutting, fitting the pieces together. What happened? To her? He paused for a moment. The silence was long. The city was hit by an alien strike. One of yours. She looked away. Guilt spread through her like ice. I'm sorry. He didn't answer, just kept working. After a while, he said, Not your fault. You didn't push the button. He gently lifted her leg and began strapping the brace around it. This might hurt, he warned. I can handle pain, she whispered. I know, he said, tightening the strap. The brace held her leg in place, locking the bones so she could stand without pressure. He made a second one, stronger, with support from the wall behind them. Try now, he said. She gripped his hand, pushed herself up slowly. Pain flashed through her, but she stood. Barely. Her body shook, but she didn't fall. A strange feeling filled her chest. Not just strength, but pride. You did this for your sister, she said. And now for you, he replied, eyes steady. Why? He hesitated, then answered, Because no one helped my sister, and you don't deserve to be left behind. A long silence followed. In that silence, something passed between them. Not love, not yet, but trust. A bond. Suddenly, a distant sound echoed through the tunnel, rolling wheels, soft lights. A patrol drone. Rylan moved fast. He pulled her into a side alcove covered with an old tarp. They held their breath as the drone passed. Its lights shined for a moment on the far wall. Then it moved on. Gone. He let out a deep breath. Too close. Lara stared at him. You don't even flinch. He looked back at her. I've had worse. She touched the torn edge of his vest. You're bleeding. He chuckled. You noticed? Then his face turned serious. We're not safe yet. I need to get you out of this war zone, but I can't carry you forever. She nodded. I'll walk, even if it kills me. Good, he said, because the only way out is through their territory. Her heart sank. But, he added, there's a place. An old human base, deep under the mountains. I think they'll help us. She hesitated. Help me? He looked her in the eyes. If they don't, they'll answer to me. She felt that warmth again, something stronger than protection. It was loyalty, and it was real. They sat together as the tunnel grew darker. The fire had died. But the bond between them had only started to burn. The secret mission. The tunnel behind them faded into silence as Rylan helped Lara walk through a rusted hatch. She leaned on him, her legs stiff with pain, but her will was stronger now. She didn't want to be carried anymore, not when she felt the fire inside her waking up. They emerged into the open night under a shattered sky. Stars blinked cold above. The world around them was dead and gray. The war had left nothing untouched. Craters, twisted metal, broken walls. Everything was broken, but they kept moving. Each step brought more pain, more danger, but also more questions. Lara finally asked the one that had been burning inside her, "You said this wasn't your mission." "Then what is your mission?" Rylan didn't answer at first. His eyes scanned the horizon. Then he stopped walking and pulled a small sealed data chip from a hidden slot in his armor. He held it out to her. "This is why I came here," he said. "This chip contains proof that your leaders started the war. Not mine." Lara froze. "That's a lie," she whispered. He shook his head slowly. "I wish it was." He explained everything. How human intelligence intercepted a secret alien transmission. How the first strike was planned months before the peace talks even began. How high-ranking alien officials erased evidence and blamed humans for everything. She felt the world tilt. "My people wouldn't do that," she said, more to herself than to him. Rylan looked at her gently. "Then why did they leave you to die?" She couldn't answer. The silence between them was sharp. "This chip," he continued, "was meant for a neutral council. If they see it, maybe we can end this war before more innocent people die. But I can't get there alone." Lara stared at the chip in his hand. A war-ending truth. And she was standing beside the only being brave or foolish enough to carry it through enemy ground. "You're asking me to betray my people," she said quietly. "No," he replied. "I'm asking you to save them." Something in her cracked. She had always followed orders, always believed what she was told. But her people left her behind. Her commander didn't even hesitate. She had bled for them, and they gave her to the fire. But this human, he risked everything to save her, without even knowing who she was. She took the chip and stared at it. So small, yet powerful enough to destroy lies. "Where's this council?" she asked. "Deep in the Galen zone," Rylan said. "2 sectors north, past your empire's defense ring." Lara's eyes widened. "That's suicide." "Not if we move fast," he said, "and if we move smart." She looked at him again, tired. Eyes, bloody arms, still standing, still ready. "Then let's move smart," she said. "I know the tunnels. I know the patrol paths. I was trained to fight humans. Maybe now, I'll help one." They set off toward the northern range, where the mountains cut across the stars like black teeth. The path was filled with dangers. Roaming patrols, spy drones, even wild creatures that had learned to feast on the dead. And there was something else, too. A hidden signal had begun tracking Rylan's biosigns. Someone knew he was still alive, and they wanted him silenced. They reached an old comm tower, one of hers. She offered to try accessing it. Rylan stayed hidden. She stepped into the cracked control room, watching every shadow. A voice called out from the dark. "Lara!" She froze. It was her old squad mate, Torin. He stepped into view, armored but face visible. He looked shocked. "You're alive?" he asked. "We thought you were dead." Lara stared at him. "You left me." He frowned. "We had orders." "I had a pulse." His eyes darted. "What are you doing here?" "Trying to stop the war." Torin's face changed. Suspicion. Fear. "You've been with him, haven't you?" he said, stepping back. "The human." Lara didn't deny it. He saved my life. Torin's voice turned cold. Traitor! He pulled his weapon, but she was faster. She struck his arm, grabbed the data crystal, and ran. Outside, Rylan saw her stumble out. Go! Now! She shouted. They fled into the trees beyond the tower, chased by alarms and the rage of betrayal. They had no more safe places now. Both sides wanted them dead, but the truth was alive, and they would carry it together. Betrayed again. The forest beyond the tower was silent, but it wasn't peaceful. Each branch cracked under their feet. Each breath steamed in the cold night air. Overhead, drones buzzed faintly, too high to see, but always listening. Lara and Rylan moved like shadows, slipping between trees and sinking into fog. They had survived ambushes, wounds, and even each other's mistrust. But now, with the data chip in hand, they had become something more dangerous than enemies. They had become a threat to both sides. Rylan checked his scanner. It blinked red. They've activated a deep scan net, he muttered. They'll find us in hours, maybe less. Lara's face was pale, not from fear, but from disbelief. My own squad called me a traitor, she whispered. I trained beside Torin for years. He didn't even hesitate to shoot. Rylan looked at her. Because he was told to. So was I, she said, her voice shaking. But I still chose to save the truth. They stopped near a cold stream to rest. Rylan knelt to refill his flask. Lara sat on a fallen tree, gripping the chip tightly in her hand like it might vanish. Then the air shifted. A sound. A soft hum. Not mechanical, not natural. A ship, not human design, and not hers either. Something different. Rylan stood quickly. That's not a patrol craft. From above, a strange triangular vessel drifted into view. No lights, no markings. A neutral ship. And then Lara understood. It's the observers, she said. The third party. The ones who record war. Crimes and stay out of politics, Rylan nodded. We've been broadcasting the chip's encrypted pulse. They must have picked it up. The ship landed ahead with a gentle thud. The door opened. Two figures stepped out. Tall, cloaked, their faces covered in chrome masks. Their bodies didn't look like hers or his. They moved like liquid, graceful, and cold. You carry something dangerous, one said, voice mechanical. We carry the truth, Lara answered, standing tall despite her limp. The figure nodded once. Then come. But beware, others are not far behind. They stepped into the ship, and the door sealed behind them. Inside, the lights were soft blue. The air smelled like minerals and metal. A screen lit up, showing a galaxy map. Data streamed beside it. This chip, the second observer said, contains proof of war manipulation, species-level betrayal. If it is real, it will burn entire governments to ash. It's real, Rylan said. We've paid for it with blood. Lara stepped forward. I saw the lies with my own eyes. I was abandoned, betrayed, hunted. The observers scanned the chip silently. Then something happened. Alarms blared inside the ship. A red warning flashed on every screen. They've followed you, the observer said. Both sides. They will not let this information reach the Council. Outside, dropships descended from both empires, human forces and alien elites, enemies, all united for one goal: destroy the truth. Take the data, Rylan said. Get it out. Now. We will, the observer said, but you must buy us time. Lara turned to Rylan. You knew this might happen. I did, he said, but I also knew I wouldn't let you face it alone. She gripped his hand. No more doubt. No more fear. They stepped out of the ship together, armed only with old rifles, courage, and rage. Soldiers emerged from the tree line, shouting commands, weapons drawn. Drones circled above. They fired first. The couple ran. Behind them, the observer ship lifted off, disappearing into the sky. But the world below was fire and chaos. Laraya was hit in the arm. Rylan took a shot to the shoulder. But they kept fighting their own kind, fighting to protect something bigger than revenge, something bigger than war, the truth. They reached a ridge overlooking the valley. Behind them, more troops closed in. They knew they would not survive this, but they had already won because the chip was gone, and the sky above them still held hope. Lara turned to him, bleeding but smiling. "You're not what I expected from a human," he smiled back. "You're not what I expected from anyone." Her new war. The sky was burning again, but this time not from warships. This time, it burned with truth. From the farthest edges of the neutral zones to the inner core of the Galactic Council, something unstoppable spread through the stars. The observers had done it. They broadcasted the contents of the chip across every major frequency in every known language. The lie was exposed. Governments panicked. Military leaders denied everything. Some went silent. Others screamed betrayal. But the evidence was clear. Voices, documents, footage, and one undeniable image, an alien warrior and a human soldier, standing side by side in the middle of a battlefield, holding the truth between them. Across colonies, civilians watched in stunned silence. The war was a setup, and two outcasts had broken it open. On a forgotten cliff deep in the borderlands, smoke drifted above shattered trees. Lara lay with her back against a rock, her breathing sharp. Rylan was beside her, his armor scorched, his wounds wrapped in scraps. Their rifles were empty. They had nothing left but each other. And they were. Surrounded, both alien and human soldiers stood in a half-circle. Weapons drawn. No orders, no mercy, no hesitation. Lara stood slowly, her legs shaking. Blood on her face. "You're too late," she said, her voice raw. The alien commander stepped forward. "You think a message changes everything?" "No," Rylan said, pushing himself up beside her, "but it changes enough." "We are not your tools anymore," Lara added, eyes blazing. "We are not your enemies," Rylan said. For a moment, silence. Then, an explosion. A deep rumble echoed from the sky. A massive cruiser appeared above them, painted in silver and gold with no allegiance flags. The observers had returned. Dropships descended, releasing a new force. Neutral agents, diplomats, camera drones. The world was watching now. The soldiers around them hesitated. Orders came through their comms, but they weren't the same anymore. Some lowered their guns, some dropped them entirely, and a few, eyes opened for the first time, stepped back in shame. Lara collapsed to her knees. Her body had given everything, but her spirit, it was only just beginning. Rylan knelt beside her, his hand on hers. "You did it," he whispered. "We did it," she said, barely breathing. Months passed. The war didn't end overnight, but it slowed. Talks began. Trials were held, and two names echoed across systems. Lara, of the Broken Blade, and Rylan of Earth's Edge, heroes. Traitors to some, symbols to many. They were offered titles, medals, lands. They refused them all. Instead, they chose a new life, together, as scouts, as truth-bringers, as a warning and a promise. One evening, as stars lit the skies above their quiet outpost, a young alien child asked Lara a question. "Why did you fight for a human?" She looked at Rylan, sitting quietly nearby, repairing an old sensor drone. Then she smiled, because he was the only one who didn't walk away. And from that moment on, her kind never forgot. The story of the alien warrior who was left to die, and the human who saved her, became a legend across the stars. Not a tale of war, but of what begins when the lies end. Her new war wasn't about killing, it was about rebuilding. with truth, with trust, with someone she never expected, a human.